Good evening, you're watching Into Vietnam Bulletin in the headlines. Credit posts a modest growth of 0.01% in the first quarter of 2014. The central bank reviews non-performing loan ratio is currently at about 7%. And the HSBC says Vietnam's manufacturing orders pick up by the end of March. As of March the 31st, 2014, credit growth was estimated at 0.01%, but the figure as of March the 23rd was minus 0.57%. According to the State Bank of Vietnam's Governor Nguyễn Văn Bình, the development was consistent with the evolution of the past few years. Especially credit in March grew 1% compared to February, showing that this year's credit growth target of 12 to 14% will be ensured in the coming months. The governor also said after policy under 6-month deposit rate was revised down 1% by the State Bank, deposit rates have dropped 0.5 to 1%, depending on maturities, and lending rates have also fallen correspondingly. However, decrease in deposit rates doesn't lead to falling in mobilized money, but it still keeps increasing. Coming up next in the program is some other notable information from the banking sector.
The current non-performing loan ratio, as reported by the credit institutions, fell sharply to about 3.6 to 3.9%. However, according to the central bank's assessment, this rate remains at about 7%. Earlier on February the 18th, 2014, Moody's released the Banking Outlook Report in 2014, evaluating the non-performing loan ratio of the banking system must be at least 15%. Shortly after, the central bank replied that non-performing loan ratios of the whole system had been significantly reduced to 3.63% of total outstanding loans, and if calculated prudently, including bad debts restructured under Decision 780, the non-performing loan ratio was about 9%. The State Bank of Vietnam purchased roughly $7.7 billion worth of foreign currency for the National Foreign Exchange Reserve in the first quarter this year, thanks to stable foreign exchange rates. The purchase had enriched the National Forex Reserve, which was reported to be more than $30 billion at the end of last year, and will have stabilized the forex rate. However, State Bank of Vietnam noted that increasing foreign exchange reserves put a large amount of pressure on Vietnamese dong, because the goal was to inject money without causing inflation and foreign exchange rate fluctuations. According to the State Bank, in the first quarter of this year, monetary and gold markets was also stable.
The State Bank of Vietnam has introduced a number of measures to cut lending interest rate, facilitating businesses to borrow from banks. Despite banks' efforts to boost lending out, businesses, particularly small and medium ones, still get turned out by banks. A closer look in the following report. Results of the recent survey conducted by the Vietnam Chamber of Commerce and Industry of VCCI showed in 2013, 65.2% of surveyed companies sought to make bank loans, and the figure for 2012 was 57.3%. Capital demand is obviously on the rise, but in the current hardships, bank loans are not for any businesses, particularly small and medium-sized enterprises.
Cái đặc điểm của doanh nghiệp nhỏ Việt Nam để phát triển rất nhanh, chưa được chuẩn bị một cách đầy đủ và chu đáo. Vốn thì ít và rất nhỏ, cái công nghệ thì lạc hậu, cái lao động làm việc thì chất lượng nó chưa được đào tạo nhiều, và cái kinh nghiệm quản lý thì nó cũng ở mức độ rất hạn chế. Đây là những cái vấn đề rất hạn chế trong cái việc tiếp cận và sử dụng cái đồng vốn có hiệu quả, và nó cũng đẻ ra rất nhiều cái tồn tại về cái mặt thủ tục. Thí dụ như những cái tiêu chuẩn về vay là không đảm bảo.
Small-scale production and businesses failing to meet bank requirements are major reasons for small and medium-sized enterprises' failure when they try to get access to bank loans. Their difficulties also come from credit institution side.
Hiện nay thì bản thân các tổ chức tín dụng cũng gặp khó khăn trong việc cân đối nguồn vốn trước tình hình khó khăn chung của nền kinh tế. Tổng tiết kiệm của toàn xã hội sụt giảm trong khi nguồn vốn huy động của các tổ chức thì là chủ yếu là vốn ngắn hạn, nhưng nhu cầu cho vay vốn thì lại là trung dài hạn. Các tổ chức tín dụng thì còn gặp khó khăn trong khâu thẩm định dự án, phương án sản xuất kinh doanh của doanh nghiệp do phần lớn cái quy mô của doanh nghiệp là hoạt động có quy mô nhỏ, sản xuất không ổn định. Các tổ chức tín dụng là không kiểm soát được không kiểm soát được cái việc góp vốn thành lập doanh nghiệp, nên tồn tại nhiều trường hợp là doanh nghiệp không có đủ vốn như đã đăng ký kinh doanh, hoặc một số doanh nghiệp đã chủ động điều chỉnh cơ cấu đầu tư hoạt động kinh doanh để đáp ứng đủ các điều kiện là doanh nghiệp nhỏ và vừa để được hưởng sự ưu đãi của chính phủ.
Although small and medium companies are among 5 prioritized areas for short loans, the government policy to support them will only work if there are strong cooperation on multi-side.
Ngành ngân hàng vẫn tiếp tục xác định doanh nghiệp nhỏ và vừa là 5 nhóm lĩnh vực ưu tiên. Và để doanh nghiệp nhỏ và vừa phát triển và tiếp cận được với các cái nguồn vốn tín dụng ngân hàng trong bối cảnh đất nước tiếp tục phải thực hiện các biện pháp ổn định kinh tế vĩ mô, kiềm chế lạm phát, duy trì tăng trưởng kinh tế ở mức hợp lý, gắn với đổi mới mô hình tăng trưởng kinh tế và cơ cấu lại nền kinh tế, nâng cao chất lượng, hiệu quả, sức cạnh tranh của nền kinh tế. Tuy nhiên, các giải pháp của ngành ngân hàng thì chỉ thực sự phát huy hiệu quả khi có sự phối hợp nhịp nhàng từ các cơ quan, bộ ngành, hiệp hội và bản thân các doanh nghiệp.
Có 4 vấn đề chúng ta phải tập trung giải quyết. Thứ nhất là về hệ thống luật lệ thì cũng phải có một cái cụ thể hơn để đảm bảo cái sự bình đẳng cho các cái doanh nghiệp này với các thành phần kinh tế khác, kể cả đất đai, tiền vốn, công nghệ, đào tạo nhân lực. Cái thứ hai là trong quá trình thực hiện thì chúng ta phải rất chú ý tập trung những cái chính sách, những cái vấn đề mà khi doanh nghiệp chưa tháo gỡ được hoặc nó còn khó khăn thì phải tập trung tháo gỡ một cách nhanh nhạy, kịp thời, phù hợp để cho họ có điều kiện và thời cơ phát huy phát triển.
Capital is the most important and also the most vulnerable factor in any economy. It's subjected to the smallest change in the marketplace. Small and medium-sized enterprises are the most vulnerable in the economy, but also the one who needs capital the most. Unless relevant agency boosts measures to support them in making bank loans, small and medium enterprises will face even more challenges in the future. Growth in the Vietnamese manufacturing sector regained momentum at the end of the first quarter. Both output and new orders increased at faster rates than seen in the previous month, and the new export orders returned to growth. According to an HSBC monthly Purchasing Manager Index report released on April the 1st, posted 51.3 in March to signal a modest improvement in overall business conditions. The reading was up slightly from 51 in February and pointed to a 7th consecutive monthly improvement in operating conditions. Solid new order growth was recorded in March, with the rate of expansion quickening to the strongest in 5 months. Panelists reported a general improvement in demand across the sector. Growth of new orders led manufacturing firms to increase production for the 6th month running. The General Statistics Office said Vietnam's total capital mobilization for social investment are estimated at $214.8 trillion or $10.17 billion in the first quarter of 2014, up 3.8% on year, accounting for 28.4% of gross domestic products. The figure is calculated based on the current prices. Of the sum, state sector contributed 78.4 trillion dong, accounting for 36.5% of the whole social investment, up 0.4% on year. Non-state sector provided 77.5 trillion dong, or 36.1%, up 6.9% on year. Foreign direct investment sector contributed 58.9 trillion dong, or 27.4%, up 4% on year. Hanoi topped the list of the cities and provinces. Funding for social investment with 3.9 trillion dong, up 5% on year, followed by Ho Chi Minh City with 2 trillion dong, down 14.8%. Bà Rịa Vũng Tàu came the third with 1 trillion dong, up 15.8% on year. According to the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, the country's exports of wood and wooden products in the first quarter surged by 20.1% against the same period last year to $1.4 billion. The figure included $490 million in taking March alone. The United States and China were Vietnam's largest wood and timber products importers in the first 3 months, accounting for 52.89% of the industry's total export value. Exports to the United States and China rose 19.85% and 57.8% year-on-year in the reviewed quarter, respectively. The Vietnam Timber and Forest Product Association says Vietnam aimed to earn $6.2 billion from exports of wood and timber products this year, up 9% from last year. It said the target is feasible as local exporters have signed a significant number of contracts. The Ministry of Industry and Trade forecasts the domestic steel sector will face many difficulties in the coming time. In the context of market economy, protection for the domestic steel industry by tariffs will be, and the volume of the imported steel into Vietnam will increase. Domestic steel exporters will have to face a number of law cases preceded by importers. The MOIT said the domestic steel sector is now facing high pressure. Therefore, Vietnam's steel sector will have to restructure, increase its competitiveness in the domestic market, study the export advantage in recent years to expand market, and have timely response to the challenges in the integration process. In terms of prices, the MOIT predicts that the prices of scrap steel will fall due to abundant supply and slowdown in prices of iron ore. And before we go, let's check out the summary of the gold prices, forex and stock market in the local market on April the 2nd. It's the end of the series. We'll be back at the top of the hour. Thanks for watching.